Well, I'll get started. So who is this guy? My name is Fabian Rodriguez. Um, Also, I'm just going to plug my podcast real quick too. I started a podcast called Diary of Sysadmin. Um, and I'm also an IT analyst at Recast Software. I handle internal operations, and I'm also the VP of the Twin Cities Systems Management User Group. But I want to thank Greg and the NW Scug folks for having me. I really appreciate you having me here. So today, let's see what's on our agenda. So today I'm going to go over managing and securing macOS devices with Intune. We're going to go over enrollment. I'll kind of cover something called autopilot-ish for macOS devices. I'm also going to go over application deployments, platform SSO, and then for security aspect, we'll cover FileVault encryption for those inside the Windows ecosystem. Think of it similar to BitLocker. We'll cover Microsoft Defender for endpoint as well. It's kind of a beast to set up, but I have some resources as well. And then we'll cover software updates with macOS using declarative device management. So I'll go back here. Why Intune? I'm not going to try to convince you. I'm just going to tell you what's available, how it works. Why single glass pane? If you have Jamf for a couple computers or any other platforms, and then you also have Windows or Microsoft Intune, it might be helpful, to get everything in one glass pane. Also reducing IT costs. If you already are paying for Microsoft Intune licenses, why not leverage them? And then also we can improve security by, make sure we are managing devices that are out in the wild, whether they're managed, whether they're not. But that's okay. So let's go over autopilot-ish for macOS. I understand it is going to be a little bit different, but the concept is we are trying to get from the device, for, whether it's Apple or any other vendor, to ship the device to the end user, and we don't have to manage that device from a person touching it perspective. It just goes straight from Apple to end user. They log in and they get to work. So the flow that I've kind of experienced is we use e-commerce and Apple Store, right? We have our business set up where our information is stored in Apple Store. So whenever we purchase a device from Apple, it is recognized from Apple Business Manager. And then once that device is set up in Apple Business Manager, it gets sunk over to our Microsoft Intune server. And then we can assign an enrollment profile inside of Intune. Think of this similar to a deployment profile. And then, right, when the user receives the laptop, they can log in. So just to kind of show you the flow a little bit, it would go from hardware vendor to user, and then they would log in, right? Obviously, it's not Windows Autopilot, but think of the concept similarly. And what are some other things inside of here that we can mention? So now we can also, inside of the enrollment profile token, we can manage that local profile count. So the first account that they use, instead of the person creating a name like John's laptop, right? We can now use, if their intro name is John Smith, we can make sure it is John Smith instead of something random. So we can pre-fill that information using the partial UPN for the primary account name. And then for the primary account full name, we can use the username. So it kind of helps us avoid some of those random names and just kind of keep a consistent profile there. And we can also restrict the editing so the user can't change that. So here we can see the user affinity and authentication method. Think of this essentially as like, hey, you can use your Entra login to authenticate to the device. And then for the management option, we can make sure that like, hey, we want to make sure that the user doesn't move forward until it's complete. And we can lock that enrollment profile as well. And I'm going to show you a really quick video of that flow when creating a enrollment profile. So we'll head on over to Microsoft Intune. We'll go over to devices, enrollment program tokens, and we'll do Intune MDM server. You can name this whatever you want. We can create a profile. You can do iPad or macOS. And here we see the user affinity. And we'll do enroll with user affinity, and we can do the modern authentication. Here I'll select yes for the locking the enrollment. And here in the setup assistant, this is kind of where you see all the like Apple ID, terms and conditions. We can show or hide that. In my case, I'm just going to hide them all and pick a few that make sense. I don't know if they make sense, but they make sense for me to toggle on. So I'm going to use location services so that the user can, click where they are. So if they're traveling, time zones can sync to wherever they are. Similar to Touch ID and Face ID, we can use Touch ID so that they don't have to use a password to log in. And then I believe I'm also going to show FileVault as well during that setup assistant. For department, use whatever you want. Toggle all, as I mentioned, to hide and show the ones that you do want to show. Perfect. And here, as I mentioned earlier, we can create our local primary account so that the user can't change that from John Smith to John's laptop. Just so we have a consistent naming convention. Do yes. And we can see here that it's going to leverage the partial UPN for the primary account name. And also for the primary account full name, it's going to use username. And we can restrict the editing. Perfect. And now that we have our profile, we can set this to default for when a device enrolls into Apple Business Manager, syncs over to Intune, it'll grab that profile by default. So sorry. Right. So I mentioned, where would you set that default profile so that the once it rolls into Apple Business Manager to Intune, then it gets that deployment profile for say. We can do it by going to profiles inside of our Intune MDM server or enrollment program tokens. And you should see that wheel at the top right over there that says set a default profile. I have some generic profiles here, but to keep it simple, if you do have you can't use multiple profiles, but if you're just getting started and you want devices to get automatically enrolled with those profiles, you can set a profile for iOS and macOS. And then I'll move over to FileVault encryption. You can set this up kind of two ways that I've seen. If there are any others, please let me know. But the first one is using Setup Assistant. So when the user first logs into their computer, they'll kind of go through that setup screen, and we enable FileVault encryption during that setup. So it just kind of from the beginning, you don't have to worry about it. Haggle the end user moving forward. But you can also set this up from the FileVault encryption pane inside of Intune. So what happens here is you go inside of Intune. So you have existing devices, right? They don't have FileVault encryption. So what you'll have to do is go to Microsoft Intune, go to the FileVault encryption pane, and I'll show this. I'm just kind of walking through this. Actually, let me show you really quick. So say you have devices that are already enrolled inside of Intune, and they don't have FileVault encryption. So what we could do is go to endpoint security. We'll go to disk encryption, and here we can create a policy. You'll want to select macOS as your platform, and we can do FileVault as our type. So I'll go over to an existing one that I already have. I'll go to properties and show you the settings that I have created. So here we can enable FileVault to yes. And then you can also, where do you want to, how long do you want this key rotated? I don't have it configured. I want to say by default, it's 1 month. And you can also set some other parameters here. Disable prompt at sign out. I'll do non-configured. And we can also hide the recovery key. So the flow is here. You have existing devices who don't have FileVault. You go enable this setting. And then in my case here, when the user logs out, it'll give them a prompt to use their credentials to like, hey, you're going to have to enable FileVault. Just add your credentials. And when they sign out, FileVault will start doing its thing. So next time when they sign in, FileVault is enabled. So, and I'll stop it there really quick for any questions. I would see questions through here.
I think I can see him in the Teams. Didn't see last check.
Cool. So I'll just kind of move forward with the FileVault setup assistant. All right. So say you're getting some new devices and you want to make sure that they are encrypted with FileVault during the setup assistant. What do we have to do? So we can create a configuration profile inside of Intune. Essentially, we'll want to go to Intune, and I'll show you so you can see this as well. So if we go to macOS configuration, I have a FileVault during setup assistant. You'll want to go to create new policy, and you'll want to do settings catalog. Here, we'll do FileVault macOS setup assistant. Go next. That's settings, and we'll do FileVault. And we should see an option for force enable and setup assistant. So if you want to take a picture, if you want to, write this down, go ahead. So we'll close that and we'll enable and we'll force it, enable and setup assistant. It's fairly quick, just 2 options. Nothing too crazy. So let's go back to setup assistant. All right. So then another option I'm going to show you is like, all right, so we have it enabled. How do we get those recovery keys for the end user? They can retrieve it from the company portal by going to portal.manage.microsoft.com. And also for the IT admins, we can grab those keys from inside of Intune. So if we go to that device directly, and on the left-hand side, we'll see recovery keys. And if they have the keys already, or if they have the FileVault recovery key, you can grab those keys through the right-hand side. Right. So now I'm going to show you what I just talked about, kind of in action. So we already bought the computer from Apple. It's shipped to the end user. We have the enrollment profile token profiles enabled. And we also have the primary local account set up. We have FileVault encryption during setup. So let's see what the end user's experience is when they grab that computer for the first time. So by default, they're going to grab their credentials. They're going to log in. And right, this will be their enrollment status page, essentially, like where they're seeing what's going on. So that'll do its magic. And here, remember when I mentioned those primary UPN and I want to say username attributes, right? For the full name, it's going to use Fabian Rodriguez. And for my account name, it's just going to use Fabian R. So the end user can't change that. Just keep it consistent. we don't want a bunch of random names for our computer accounts anyways. They will have to create a password. But I'll mention something later about that too. We'll continue there. Cool. And now we'll head over to those actions that I toggled. I believe I did location services, Touch ID, and FileVault. So we should see that from an end user's perspective. So, right, end user can enable location services on their Mac, right? If they're traveling, it can sync with their time zones. And here we have that file disk encryption. So we can enable FileVault during setup. We don't have to mess with it later on. And they can't disable this as well. So we're encrypting it from the get-go. Don't have to worry about it in the after sense. Now we also have that Touch ID option, right? If you don't want similar to Windows for Hello for Business, right? Using biometrics to sign in. So we'll move forward. I won't set this up just to show us, but and I did speed up this video, so it wasn't in real time, but it's actually still pretty quick. But that's just from the end user's experience and the IT admin's configuration, right? Pretty simple, nothing too crazy. We're getting the FileVault encrypted. We're using our enrollment profiles. So I'll stop it right there. Any questions? This makes sense.
You're managing Macs and basically more.
There's a question in the chat about the password syncing into Entra ID.
Yes, so I will cover that. That is a part of the platform SSO feature where we can leverage our Entra password to sync over to our macOS device. I will cover that here later, but for now, keep that question in your pocket. Cool. Yeah, it's from our experience, it's been a pretty good flow. Right, if you're managing Macs, you don't. I don't want to touch them personally. Like I think if we can go from the OEM or from our Apple provider, whoever that is, to the end user, pretty good user experience. Or at least I hope so. Nobody said anything else. Yes.
Shared back.
Yep.
Kind of environment.
Yes, I personally don't have. We have like one in our environment, so I can't really speak much on that. But I know there is capabilities for shared macOS devices as well with Intune. I'll try to find some resources to pass those over. So. Cool. And I didn't figure out the Teams presenting view wasn't working for me, so I'm gonna have to keep scrolling. I'm sorry, everybody. All right. This one's interesting, the application deployments. I was talking to a good friend named Dina Ellerby the other day. We were like, man, app management for Macs is a little tough. I don't know how the Mac admins were doing it back in the day. But I'm not going to cover it too much. But there are a few different. You can deploy applications and update them through Intune. Similarly to if you're packaging 132 apps, right? Get that into one file and you want to update them. Think of the concept similar to macOS apps. So I know you can do DMG apps, you can do PKG apps, and let me actually show you those what you can deploy inside of Intune for applications. Go to create. And here we can see the different options we have for applications. So we have the Microsoft 365 apps. We have Microsoft Edge, Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Don't be fooled here. If you send this to your devices, it's kind of not going to be turned on. There is some legwork we have to do on the back end for this to work correctly. We can do macOS web clips and others, web clips, line of business app, DMG and PKG. So you have various different options. Right, if you have a small fleet and you have one or two applications, this is a great option. But I'm also pretty biased. I work for a third-party patching solution company, so they make it easy for me. So I'm not gonna tell you what to do, but like if you can alleviate some of your time there, that'd be awesome. But just know you have these capabilities inside of Intune. If you can't use a third-party packaging tool, you know, you just know you have options as well inside of Intune. They're not leaving you high and dry. So, yeah, any questions there? I'd say they're pretty consistent too. With Microsoft Intune, sometimes, you know, you might have to hit a couple syncs for the applications to come down. But yeah. Back to my presentation. I am the worst PowerPoint presenter, so sorry. And this is pretty neat. Platform SSO. This is going to, right, a high level, right? It's a framework built by Apple. It's going to help us connect our Macs to our IDP. So as we were mentioning, the password from Entra to the computer. But we also have a few different options, and this is available on macOS 13 Plus. So what do we need to turn this on? So the recommended version of macOS 14 Sonoma, we want to have the Microsoft Authenticator, and we also want to have Microsoft Intune Company Portal at version 5.2404.0. And don't worry, I will make sure all these slides are available. You don't have to remember all this fine print. So let's go over different options that are available. So for instance, we have password. And it's been good. I've tried it before. There are some kind of hiccups and caveats that you run into, such as like changing passwords. Sometimes you have authentication errors inside of Office 365 apps. And I do believe the recommended method from Microsoft is Secure Enclave. Right, it has passwordless phishing resistance. We can use a passkey, Touch ID, support for unlock, and all these other different options. So, let's see. But to the person who asked, yes, if you wanted to sync your Entra credentials, say John Smith's password is password123, and you want to sync that over to their macOS device, we can make sure that those are syncing together. You know, if that's something that you want for your end user experience, go right ahead. So I'm going to show you how this looks in action. And also something else to mention, we can also manage the end user's account management. So by default, when they enroll to the device, they are going to be local admins. We can't change that from the get-go for Microsoft Intune, but we can use Platform SSO to demote that end user's admin rights from admin to standard. But there's a caveat. You do need to have an end user or a device or a local user on there that is an administrator. You can do that by scripts, and I'll make sure I provide all these scripts and everything in like wherever I can. But by default, the end user is going to be an admin inside of Intune right now. But we also have to deploy that end user who is an admin that we want to be an admin. So let me show you how this looks. So right, we're going to log in with John Joe. They are going to be an admin from the get-go. They went through the end user experience. So let's go take a look at the admin rights really quick, or just the user management. We'll go to users and groups. And here we can see that we have two different users. We have John Joe, who originally started the computer or enrolled the computer, and they are going to be an admin. But we also have a secondary account that I created with the script that is TC Smug admin account, and they are an admin on there. So, right, what we're going to have to do now is register this device with Platform SSO, which we can see at the top right over here. We're going to give the end users this notification, or they'll see this notification when they first log in if we have Platform SSO set up. So we'll go do our due diligence. We'll continue. The end user will have to put in their credentials, and they'll log in with their Entra ID, and it's preparing their device. So here we also see that we can do the passkeys as well. So we'll go ahead and do that. And we can see the registration is complete. So let's go ahead and log out of the device. Cool. We'll log back in. And John Joe is now a standard user, whereas that TC Smug admin account is an admin. So that is how we can demote that local account or that user account. So boom, they can't do anything. We took their keys away. So now, and then another really good thing is we can use Platform SSO syncs to like Safari and Google Chrome. So the end user can now go to portal.office.com and they'll just land into their Office 365 portal. So seamless user experience. We can handle that local account management. And, if you want to use password sync, that's also going to be a great additive for the end user. So I'm just showing you how it looks right now. If you log into a computer, they don't have Platform SSO. If you go to Google Chrome, go to portal.office.com, they're going to have to log in again. Yeah, those credentials will be stored. So next time they log in, they'll have them. You can log in again. But if your token expires, they have to log in again. So this is just a nice seamless experience. So let's go ahead and try to download an application with the standard users credentials. So we don't have Firefox in here, I believe. We don't. So I'm going to download Firefox. Here. Boom. You see the standard user cannot install this application. So what we'll have to use is an admin account. So in my case, I do have that TC Smug admin account. Cool. And then we'll go over to our applications, see if that downloaded. And boom, there it is at the top right. So. Any questions with Platform SSO? It's been really good to us. We might not use Secure Enclave. So I think it's really good from an end user experience and from an admin experience. So, right, we can use that local account, the admin one, to demote that standard one. I think that's a really big win.
And for secure enclave, primarily you're referring to confidential computing, right?
Yes.
Yeah, generally confidential computing is hard to implement and manage. Based on my experience, if any customer is looking for FIPS or CJIS kind of requirement, that is the only time we recommend, okay, go to a sure government environment with confidential computing to meet those regulatory requirement. Otherwise, it's like kind of very hard implementation. If compliance is not the factor, and if you have any other solutions, better go to other route.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what about Microsoft Defender for Endpoint? So Just know it's available for macOS devices too. It's not just for your Windows devices. There is some heavy lifting. I don't know if heavy lifting is the word, but there is some configurations that we have to do in order for this to work. And what is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint? It's an enterprise endpoint security platform designed to help enterprise networks prevent, detect, investigate, and respond to advanced threats. Essentially, it's an agent, or I don't know if it's an agent, but it's configuration on device to help us, see some threats, get some alerts from a high level. And here is a picture, just kind of how it looks from a IT admin's perspective. We can see the software that an end user's computer has. We can see some of the CVE information, the vendor, the application, the application model or the application version. So if version for Google Chrome 1.0 is, high level on the CVE charts, we can see that. And our security analyst or whoever will let us know. And from with the IT admins, we can go remediate that. So just kind of a holistic view of the information from a device, and we can see it from an IT admin's perspective. Is this set up by default? No. But my friend Dean Ellerby has a great video on how to do this. I think it took him like 15 minutes. So 15 minutes is worth it. I'll share this link available. I'll share this link. And I was going to write a blog on this, and I will. I owe you a blog, but like I said, it's kind of a grind, but I will do it. I will do it. I will share it with you. So stay on the lookout. And declarative device management. I think this one is one of the ones that excite me the most. So this is just like a frame or a protocol on top of the MDM existing solution that essentially how I see it is like, right, if we ask our servers to grab us an update, it's going to go fishing, it's going to come back sometime. But I think like DDM, and I could be wrong, I'm just saying it how I see it, is like we have a server that has our updates and we're just asking for it like all the time. Is there an update? Is there an update? Is there an update? Versus traveling across to the server, waiting for how long it takes. DDM is just kind of like always asking, like if it's there, it's just going to grab it. So what is currently available inside of Intune? Here's capabilities right now. We have disk management, map settings, passcode, Safari extension settings. And I believe they just tweaked this to, it was broken Safari extension settings, but I think it is now has been corrected. And then we also have software update enforce latest, and software update settings. So let me show you really quick how DDM looks from a software update perspective. And if you have managed Macs before, there is a macOS updates option here. It's a little clunky. I don't know if it's it was a little bit crazy for me because we couldn't schedule it to be right. Schedule this when an end user isn't using their computer, or enable this at X time. It's like, hey, if a computer checks in and there's an update, it's going to reboot. So from an end user experience, it wasn't really pretty. So now we have DDM updates. So if we go to macOS and we'll go to configuration, we can go to DDM, macOS DDM updates. I'll create a new one. Let's do that. It's in settings catalog. We'll create and we'll do nwscug DDM updates. All right, go next. At settings and search for DDM. There it is. And there's those options that I mentioned: disk management, map settings, disk management. It's like similar to Windows. If you have, if you're blocking USB drives, you can do this as well. But the one I really want to mention today is software updates. We have a few different options. I'll focus on enforce latest and software update settings. So if you want to manage your software updates a little bit more manual, we can do software update. Actually, it'll be under software updates. So we'll go here and say we have details URL. So let me open this up again. Devices, macOS. So say you want to target this build, it was 15.4.1, and we want to target it for today at 6 p.m. And actually, this will be the build 15.4.1. So essentially, what this is going to do is this is going to send this version of 15.41 and this build version to our macOS devices at 6 p.m. And what's 6 p.m.? It's the person's local time. So it's 6 p.m. here today. And it's also going to send it out to the person in Minneapolis at 6 p.m. So it's kind of a asynchronous time. So, right. If you want to do it then, let's see. Does anybody have the build version for 15.5 off the top of their head? I'm going to show you how this looks. Let's see. Build version. If somebody has it in the chat, that'd be cool too, but here we go. 24747. Okay. So I'm going to deploy this to a device. We're going to do 15.5. We'll do it at 6 p.m. So details URL, I can do like apple.com, but if you want to send it to a CVE site, you can. So we'll do next, and you know, it's Friday, let's live a little, all users. So actually I'll do devices. I'll do all devices. And this is a lab, don't do this in your environment. Roll it out with pilots. I just have a small lab here just to show you the concept. We'll do next, create, and I'm going to fire up one of my virtual machines. So show you this really quick. Let's see. Can everyone see my macOS device? Perfect. So we can see it's on 15.4.1. And let's go over to our management profile so we can see that profile has came through. Actually, I'm going to do a really quick. If it's not there, I'm going to run a really quick sync. So under device management, we'll go to our manage profile. There we go. So if we scroll down, okay. So I just turned it on. Let me run a quick sync. Do this, check status. And it'll fall under this device declarations. Boom, look at that. It's so quick. It was already there. We sunk it, and we can see that this device is going to have a required 15.5, and we can see that it's at 6 p.m. So once 6 p.m. hits today, this computer is going to update to 15.5. So I just want to show you the speed of that. That is really quick, and it is like that in real life. So
There was a question just a little while ago asking if declare device management similar to PowerShell desired state. I think in general it is, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
you're fishing all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
You specify your desire and
Yeah. So I this is one of the things that really excites me in terms of the speed. And we have seen a lot of reliability on this too. So any questions with DDM? see, does anybody want to see what's available in the admin center for DDM again? Not, I'll move forward. Cool. So so here are some of the capabilities with macOS with Intune. Some of the ones that I covered today are DMG support, DDM software updates, let's see, Defender policy enhancements, DO8 final config, local account management, platform SSO. So these are just some of the capabilities, and I'm trying to find a sheet or something to find all capabilities and try to get some updated ones as well. But I've definitely seen a lot of additions and really good things from Intune for macOS support. And here's some ones I saw on a YouTube video recently. Some of the ones that are coming soon. User channel support for resource access profiles. But some of the ones one of the one that really excites me is laps. Right now we can't do laps for macOS devices for user profiles or users or devices. You can use custom solutions. There are people doing like their own versions. I can't remember them top of my head, but it would be pretty nice to have it available inside of Intune, similarly to Windows, just for that local account management. Platform SSO, I think that one's really nice too. But just wanted to leave this here just to show you what is coming soon. So yeah, so thanks again, NW Scug. We got a great crew here, so thank you everybody for showing up. You can follow me on, if you want to contact me, if you need some help, I'm more than happy to help. You can contact me at Blue Sky, LinkedIn. I have a blog. I need to work on it a little more. I'll get you that Microsoft Defender for Endpoint blog. And then if you want to check out the podcast too, go ahead. Yeah, thanks everybody. I hope at least you grab some nuggets